So, come closer.
Why?
Because we should be like at the same level.
Oh, I wanted them to see what we were wearing because you were
okay.
talking about.
Yeah. So I'm wearing this like gown, okay, but my gown is like a full length gown, and Mary is wearing a dress.
That's not full length.
Yeah, without any sparkles and things.
I'm basic.
The invitation said formal.
Yeah, this is my formal.
Yeah, so that's formal to you, and this is formal to me. And is it an expectation, a cultural norm, or is it just a personal preference? What made you pick this dress? Even though, like, I've asked you all week, every day, what we were wearing to this wedding, and you didn't care because you only wanted to know where you're going to charge your Tesla.
Yeah, those are facts. I picked this dress because it had sleeves and the material was thick enough for me because I knew I was going to be cold. Why did you pick your dress?
I picked the dress because to me, formal on an invitation for a wedding means that you have to wear something long and more elegant. And I usually wear long dresses anyway. If I wear short dresses, I wear them with leggings because I don't show my legs.
Okay. Well, I guess that brings up the good point of what we're talking about today, and about, you know, what is expectation, like social norms versus like personal preferences, right? That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So for me, like, I didn't even see that part on the invitation of like formal attire, honestly. So like, you know, my eyes don't gravitate to that. Maybe your perspective is different. So maybe that's why like I wasn't really like, I guess, planning what I was wearing, because like I knew that there was going to be something that I could wear, and I would see it maybe the day before and just feel comfortable about it. Those are the things that come to my mind when I dress. Like, the number one thing for me when I dress, I think now in my 40s more so than before when I was in my 30s or 20s, the one word to describe it would probably be comfort.
So you look for comfort even for a formal function like a wedding or something?
Yeah, I mean, like, before, maybe, like, I would say still up to, like, my 30s, I would probably look more for, like, how it looks. But now I'm just like, is this dress comfortable? Yes, because like I said earlier, it has sleeves, it has all the things that I look for, which is, like, I'm not going to be cold in it, and can I dance and move around in it comfortably?
You didn't dance much today.
But that's literally what I did in the other dress, and it was like too tight, the blue one that I showed you, and I was like, oh no, this is not comfortable.
Oh, okay. So why didn't you dance that much today?
Because I started to get acid reflux. And you know, that's being 40, like, that's what happens. I mean, when you're in your 20s, you could jump around after you eat dinner, like, but I can't. I have to wait 2 hours after now.
Well, I just my God, we're so tired because we've been doing this wedding all day long.
Yeah.
Because first we went to the church thing, and
that's the thing too. I knew we were going to be out all day, so I was like, okay, do I want to be in a constricting piece of material all day? I also thought about that.
I just thought about the chance to be like really dressed up at a dressy function, and like you would never wear something like this otherwise. So, and I like wearing things with sequins and that are fancy and getting all sparkly and jazzed up.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not that I don't like it or I've never done it. I feel like weddings, you can dress nice and
I guess
not look,
that also
you
comes
know.
from like when we say culture, like I'm Indian and we get really jazzed up for everything.
Yeah.
In fact, my mother would probably be like, "Why are you wearing no jewelry?" But to me, it's like I'm wearing jewelry.
Yeah.
But so, because in Indian culture, they just like both arms are filled with bangles and all the like big necklace and stuff. So
Yeah.
to me, but I knew that's not going to be appropriate for a non-Indian wedding, so I just put a little bit of jewelry on. But see, like to us, it's like you get really dressed up and you wear your best stuff and perfume and everything. So I think that's part of like just a cultural norm that's within. That's something that is normal.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I guess that's why we're doing this, or having this conversation, because is that what is supposed to be normal? I mean, like, can you as a woman go to a wedding and still wear like pants or like a dress suit?
I think you can wear that stuff now, right? That's like if it's dressed up enough, that's acceptable. Well,
like as a society, or as like in general, like as women, like, are we all expected to be more feminine with the way we dress? Like, does that define your femininity? Because like if you're not wearing a lot of jewels or like makeup, does that still make you not feminine? I think that's the question, and that's probably why we're having this conversation, right? Because there's different definitions of like what formal is for certain people.
What formal
right? And like, and you're
is,
saying like maybe for you and your culture, how you grew up, like having a lot of jewelry and stuff like that is what defines formal or being a woman in the Indian culture. But like in other cultures, that might not be so. It might just be wearing a dress or like having high heels on or something. So, who really defines that?
Yeah, I think that's, and I think those definitions are changing a lot too.
Oh, for sure. And it's going to change because, now we have, like gender identity, right? Like identifying yourself with like the opposite sex or what you were born with, right? Like your gender that was assigned to you at birth may be different, right? So who's to say that like you have to look a certain way on the outside?
Then that's an interesting point, right? Because when the gender, the physical aspect of the gender is something that people want to change, then they tend to dress a certain different way then. So are we then like, that's because we're subconsciously already defining what genders look like what.
Right. But that's what we're saying. Is that fair for us to do? Because like, do all women have to look the same? Like, do we all have to dress up a certain way, right? And I don't think we do, because the way you dress is an expression of your personality also. That's like, for me, like what I see, like I'm not comfortable wearing like a tight dress that shows my booty or like, is like not like right at my knee or above it a little bit. Right? Whereas like other women will be very, very comfortable to do that. Right? So
there's a woman at the wedding today that had her boobs out, and she had a boob piercing too, so that to make sure everybody knew she had boobs.
Right. But like, is that less formal?
Is that less formal? Is it more feminine? Which one is it? And what made her do that? What made her choose that dress and attire and perception?
I think it's because she was comfortable in it. She's obviously comfortable in her body enough to show her cleavage, so that we could, I don't even think she probably cares if you see it or not.
But is it a comfort level or is it a discomfort? Right? Because in a way, like, that's the other thing with women. Why aren't we comfortable enough to cover up our bodies?
I mean, I think we are. I think the pandemic, honestly, has made a lot more women comfortable, like wearing sweatpants at home and then being on Zoom meetings, like down here, from here on up, you look business-like, and then the joke is like on the bottom, you're wearing sweatpants or shorts or underwear only.
Like even like going out about like why are women the expectation is for more fitted clothes and more clothing that shows things off, or like jeans, for example. I mean, now Gen Z is doing something totally different with their jeans, are like very baggy jeans now.
Yeah, they have the mom jeans and the dad jeans.
Yeah, but for us, it was like skinny jeans and like the hipster jeans and all these things that are really uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess like it really depends on your comfort level of like. There's just girls who are more comfortable showing their bodies than some other girls, right? Like, you know, like growing up, you'll see girls going outside showing their bellies, mid-bellies and stuff like that. And, like, I wasn't comfortable doing that because, first of all, I wouldn't walk out of my house weren't doing that because my dad would kill me.
Yeah.
My sister, so it really depends on how you grew up.
But see, you use the word comfort with girls that show that stuff, but when I see it, I think the opposite. It's discomfort. Like they're uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable covering up because there's some sort of expectancy that to be attractive or to be feminine, like the body parts have to be shown more. And like as soon as it gets warm out, girls are dressing more skimpy, like automatically it happens.
Well, see, that's the thing. I think that we see it as skimpy. So like other people who are not that person are looking at them and saying that is skimpy, like clothing. Maybe they don't see it as skimpy. So it's like, you know, it's the point of view of the person that's looking at it, right? If you're looking at a picture, right? There's like certain pieces of art where you're looking at it and one person will look at it and describe it one way, and then another person will look at it and describe it a different way, right? So I see it as like maybe these girls, when they look in the mirror and they're going outside and they're showing their skin, they don't see anything wrong with that, right? It's not about them like saying like, oh, I have to go outside looking like half naked. Maybe they just look at themselves and say, hey, like there's nothing wrong with this. Whereas like another girl will look at themselves in the mirror and say, well, if I go outside and wear this, I might be like an object of attention and I'll get more guys looking at me, and that's creepy, so maybe I shouldn't go outside looking at this. It's all about perspective and how people see themselves in their own skin, I think. And that's how people dress, right? You essentially dress because of how you feel and how you see yourself, and people like me who just want to be comfortable.
Well, you focus on comfort. Like you always focus on comfort, and that is what comfort means to me. That you're feeling comfortable. But if you think about it, like when I was in high school, I got called to the principal's office because we weren't allowed to wear sleeveless clothing when I was in high school, and a couple of times I just did it anyway. And because I used to wear sleeveless in school in high school, and I stopped doing that since then. That's because I became uncomfortable doing it. So we weren't allowed to, but I would do it a couple times. Then the principal, I would get sent by my math teacher to the principal's office.
Wow.
Oh, it's crazy. And you know, because we weren't allowed to. Now the fact is, why were we not allowed to dress a certain way? So
I don't know. Why did your school have a no sleeve?
There was a no sleeveless policy because they expected kids to be more modest and not to attract negative attention. That was just the idea. You know, because that was I guess now we can't call it a fact because you're not allowed to call anything a fact anymore. But that was like the whole tone of decency and modesty and encouraging kids to, be serious and not dress a certain way.
Mm.
Like shorts had to be certain. I didn't go to. I went to like a public school in New Jersey.
Mm.
And went to a regular basic school. It wasn't, so that those were the rules. So that was the expectation, and because that was the definition of what modesty was and what you're supposed to do in just a regular Jersey school.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's since changed. I don't know if I definitely don't think they call kids to the principal's office anymore. Because I have some children coming to my office, some teenage girls that definitely doing more than sleeveless nowadays. So,
going to school like that, okay.
Yeah.
Like with their midriffs on?
Yeah. Sleeveless, booty short.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's changed because I guess now we're not allowed to tell people what to do anymore. But does that change what modesty is looked at, or is it just more accepted that
I think it's more I think it might be more accepted that.
Or is it because you just can't tell anybody anything anymore? You can't take kids' phones away from them. You can't get them to eat healthy. You can't get them to dress a certain way because it's a whole.
Well, also it's
everyone just do what they want.
It's a culture of being woke, also, right? Like because like our generation is the generation after our parents, which is the boomers, right? And so millennials and then Gen Zs have started this movement of being woke and like empowering each other to do whatever they want, no rules, no hold bars, whatever. Whereas like we grew up in a very like standardized way, right? Where like not everyone gets a trophy. And then that changed after us, where everybody does get a trophy. There's no winner. Everyone is a winner, right? And that's the culture now. It's not that they can't tell them what to do or what not to do. I think now it's that our generation, like the people in our shoes who are mothers, who were raising their children, have allowed this culture that like, yes, you can do whatever you want, child. You dress however you want. Because like when I was your age, I was told to not go to school without sleeves, right? So part of it is like we did that. Like our generation allowed that because we grew up with those restraints. Like I went to Catholic school my whole life, so I didn't have a problem. I had to wear a uniform every day, so.
I didn't know you went to Catholic school.
I told you, I was in the church all the time.
I just realized I didn't tag you.
I think you can tag me after.
Okay. So, no, continue talking. I'm just gonna try to tag you. You can keep talking. I'm just gonna tag you because then your friends can watch too.
Oh.
Like, well,
I don't know if tagging makes it like a thing.
What do you mean?
Like, even if you tag me, I don't know if it's gonna like allow them to watch it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, so
So yeah, I don't think it's about what we tell the kids to do or not to do. I think it's that we have allowed this way of like thinking to happen.
See, but the thing that constantly bothers me the thing that just constantly bothers me when we say that, this is what people, now that we're allowing it, but I'm still not buying it that this is necessarily, whatever we do is not always what we want to do. Sometimes we're doing it because there's a psyche within us that wants to do it, not like a comfort that wants to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when a 16-year-old girl is walking around with very revealing clothing, is it really what she wants, or is it what she feels she needs to do to get the attention, to feel like some sort of like or love? You know, the whole attention is love, form of love. Is it really, or is it more like she just needs some kind of attention and she doesn't even know she's doing it?
Well, a lot of it is called social media. We also didn't grow up with social media, so I think that unfortunately a lot of younger people have grown up seeing certain people or celebrities or like Instagram influencers or Facebook influencers, and like that's what they see, and so they're like, oh, okay, if that person is liked by so many people or they have so many viewers, then it must be okay to like mimic that person or to dress like that person, right? And so that's why social media is a whole nother level of conversation, because if this is what kids are growing up with watching, which is not what we grew up watching, like this is what's navigating their thought process. So that's how I see it, like that these kids don't actually have insight into that, and they actually don't have insight into the fact that like they might actually be insecure with themselves with the way that they dress, like you're saying, because they're just literally watching constantly on their phones TikToks and like whatever it is, and they're like, oh cool, like that's the new challenge, everyone should do it. So it's like very robotic for these kids, whereas like when we were younger we had to think about things because we didn't have instant access and we didn't have instant answers to anything. We couldn't Google every question, so we had to actually figure it out. We had to take a bus to go to the library, and that probably was like a week later, you know. So when I think about that, like our brains are different, like the way you and I were growing up is different from how these kids' brains are developing.
When you did like a research, you had to spend like a whole hour or two in the library just trying to figure out one fact, and you couldn't take the encyclopedias home, so you had to print like copies.
Yeah, or you had to go to those disc things and go downstairs to the basement and put it in that machine to go through.
Sheath.
Yeah, you know, but that was it. Like we were self-sufficient. We had to figure things out, and I think that made us the last generation that's able to actually think critically and insightfully and have insight into process, right? Whereas like, no, like we're not talking bad. We're just saying that sometimes like having more technology makes you less reliable in the sense that like you're just gonna go straight to the Google and, you know.
Well, it's like today when I was telling you the wedding cake was fake.
You went straight to Google.
I went to Google. I Googled 3 things during that wedding.
Yeah.
I Googled the cake, and I Googled what pancetta is. No, you Googled that.
No, I didn't. I know what it was.
I Googled it.
I know what it was.
But I think so. But yeah, like, but that instant need, like, it makes you focus less, and it makes you less patient, right? So there's and then if you're not thinking, then you're not using all the little parts of your brain. And I mean, is it coincidence that there's more depression and anxiety?
Yeah, because
you're not thinking.
You're not thinking, but you're also less individualized. You become part of like just the masses. Whereas like I feel like our brains growing up
Chrissy said, also means that we made decisions based on no facts or research. In a lot of cases, not sure if that was better, just different. Yeah, and Christy's right. There's a lot of benefits. I mean, look, we get to do a video right now, live.
Yeah,
you know, there's a lot of good information. So nothing's
on the internet,
perfect,
which could be fake.
But I think, like, for people like us, a generation like Christy is around our age too, was able to go to the library, which she still does, and we looked up things, you know, and we're able to do that, and she's raising her kid the same way. But the thing is that, you know, a lot of parents aren't, and a lot of teenagers now don't have that. So maybe having both sides, like we're lucky we had both sides of it. We got to see what it was like to live without it, and now we have it. So we're using it differently, but to grow up in it without knowing the difference.
That's what I mean. Like this is the first thing they see is just like this computer or this iPhone, and they're watching people do videos, and they just automatically do it just because it's like what's in, and they sort of, I don't know, you might agree to that because you're a pediatrician. Like I feel like kids are less and less able to form like their personalities or their individualism because of that, because they're like, I have to look like this, or I need to be this influencer, or I have to buy the things that this person is saying that they're buying. And this is the problem with social media, right? And
it's addicting. So if we know where to start it and where to stop it, versus when you do get that hook and then you can't even put it down. So it's like anything, too much of a good thing is not good. Yeah. And when you're getting to the point where you're just kind of feeling down about it.
Well, yeah, but that's what you're saying. Like, I think that girls who don't see themselves looking like that influencer will get depressed, will get anxiety, because they can't look like the people that they see all the time on their phones.
And I kind of think, like, that when you do something that you've seen and then you do it, but maybe deep inside you really don't want to do it because it's not comfortable.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. They don't have that insight because they're just doing things. Because all they're doing is watching Instagram feeds and TikTok feeds, and they're like, okay. They don't know how to make like individualized decisions about who they really are. And that's part of the reason why there's a lot of teenage depression, because when you're a teenager, all your hormones are going crazy, like you know. And so why are these kids having more and more depression? Because they like literally are probably just really confused about who they are, and they can't figure that out because their brain is telling them through social media that they need to be a certain way, but there might be some like circuits, and they're going, oh, but that's not what I really want.
Yeah,
and then it's like,
exactly.
My friends are doing it.
Yeah,
whereas
there's
like
the brain circuits.
Yeah.
Like you as a human being,
whereas
what
like,
you want
you know,
to do.
when we were younger, we were just like, we're either going to be this way or that way, because we either chose to be with like this group of people or that group of people.
I wasn't with any group. I had like one friend.
But you know what I mean? Like, I was talking to one of my medical students about that today, because she went to a high school that used to be all boys when I went to my all-girls Catholic high school. And so we were talking about like how different it was for me when I went to Catholic high school and when she went to Catholic high school, like probably decades later.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, you know, we were talking about the difference of how it was, and it made me think about that, about like how different the times were for us than it was for them.
Yeah.
And like, to be honest with you, like, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes, because it sounds like more difficult to be in high school during the time that she was in high school than it was for me, because like there wasn't as much bullying, you know, because we didn't have these things to compare ourselves to. We didn't have the TikTokers, we didn't have influencers, we didn't have Facebook media.
It's crazy how the bullying
we compared ourselves in person.
Yeah.
So it was like I had to see these girls in Catholic school, all girls every day. We were like, okay, so that's how you look today. I didn't have to turn my phone on to see how you were dressing today. You know, so I had to go to school to see how people looked.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't like, and these kids can get on their phones and be like, oh, look at her, look how, oh, OTD, outfit of the day. Whereas, like, I literally needed to go to school to look and see what everybody looked like. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, nice lipstick.
Nice lipstick.
You know, so it's like, it was more simple and real and genuine.
Yeah, I mean, I think bullying and mean people always has existed and will continue.
It will exist, but I don't think there was as much because we couldn't put ourselves on social media back then.
Well, the social media aspect is really bad for the bullying because of the fact that it stays there. It sits there for everyone to repeatedly see.
Like, we weren't recording each other on lives when we were in high school.
No, I thought it was
So
so
barely,
cool
like,
because
figure out how
I'm
to
the
do
one that
instant
took
camera.
the pictures for the yearbook. So I was the one with the camera in the school. It's not like everybody walked around taking pictures. I was the only one taking pictures.
Yeah.
I finally got to be cool for a second. Because then the people would be like, take my picture.
Yeah.
Took it. So, yeah, so I think, oh, Chris, what do you think about the increased anxiety in kids in secondary school who don't typically have the same access to social media yet? My son's in 3rd grade and the anxiety in him and his classmates is huge. So I don't think that's because I don't think social media is the only.
It's not just.
It's not, and it's not directly. First of all, it's not just social media. It's the whole world, and kids, like Isadora's age, do tend to like they sense everything around. Like it's not just that. It's not just like a direct. You have to access social media, and if you're not accessing it, you're fine. It's become an entire environment, and they sense, like kids sense and absorb the moods and the whole environment. Like even during the pandemic, they still didn't, definitively understand everything that was happening. But kids are like little pets. They can sense the general mood and the atmosphere and the way things change and the way the teachers behave and the attitude and the demeanor of everything around them. And yes, you're right. Tons of kids who are really small are also feeling anxious.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously there was a huge thing that happened in the last few years, right? And you know, like you said, kids are very sensitive to like how adults
emotional
are
sponges.
Yeah, like kids are very, very intuitive about their environment, and especially the adults that they live with. And then like when they go back to school, like the other kids that they interact with also, right? So
yeah, like what are those kids bringing to the school,
right.
And what are the other kids feeding off of them? Like the things that are happening besides the pandemic, we are having a lot more disagreements. There's a lot more parents that aren't together as units. There's a lot of split families and combined families and things that are affecting just how kids are just, being shuttled back and forth and seeing disagreements more, because that's just, it's more acceptable now to split from an unhappy kind of relationship. Like we were just talking about this, like the boomer times, like a lot of those families, they may not have been happy, but they just kind of stuck it out together, which isn't necessarily a happy situation for a kid either. But the fact is that there's a lot more confusion. There's a lot more social confusion. And
I mean, even if they don't have access to social media, I think that like kids still hear things. Like they hear like with the news, and they hear adults talking, their teachers talking.
And the teachers are having a lot more open conversations too.
Yeah, teachers are talking too, and I think that it's a very like difficult time for everybody after the pandemic.
And prior to the pandemic, the anxiety and the moods were worsening already.
Yeah.
And now it's taken a whole nosedive for everybody. Because you add pandemic to social media and then everything else.
Like the parents were stressed because they couldn't go to school. So.
Yeah, I mean the whole stress on the parents. No, I had our entire conversation. Every time we talk about anything, it ends up we're talking about this because it's so huge. But
the pandemic.
No, just like mood. We end up talking about mood, but that's because I think everything's related to psyche, right? So we start talking about dress code and why it happens the way it does, and we end up talking about psychological stuff because it's all
you
related.
were talking about like how to dress earlier, like when we were shopping, like we were talking about how certain women like to dress a certain way.
Yeah.
And like how certain women like certain perspectives of their body and some women don't.
Well, yeah, and we were like it is like what you think is acceptable versus what is acceptable in your culture, religion, and
so
just society. So
yeah, I mean, and so like one of the things you were talking about, like women having big butts, right? Like, and you know, let's just put it out there. There's been some women in the media and celebrities,
yeah,
with famous kajunks, and then like there was like this like increase in like, you know, elective surgeries to get kajunks to look like those certain women. So like, where does that come from? Of like, you know, like, why do you need to look like that?
Yeah, and then the women who don't then feel kind of bad about themselves.
Like, but who decided that having a big kajunk was like what makes a woman's body beautiful? So like, if other women who don't have big kajunk, does that make them less beautiful?
And that keeps changing. Like in the 70s, it was beautiful to be like a 12-year-old boy's body, like that model Twiggy and stuff.
But who decides that?
And who decides that? Right, because in every country, it's different too. Like I told you earlier today, I don't know if people realize, but like in India, for example, you know, Muslim women around the world have like their own way of dressing. We won't get into all that right now. Well, we will, but not this very second. But like the other like religion and stuff in India, like they don't really show it's not acceptable to show your legs so much, but they all show their navels. You know, and that's like normal. Like 56-year-old women just wearing saris and showing their navels while they're at work.
And their boobs are
like,
hanging out too.
Their boobs are hanging out though.
I mean, like it's because it's just one. It's literally just a tube top.
Yeah, but they have the actual sari material over their chest, so it's the blouse is there, but then they wear the material over it.
I know, but like you said, it's just material.
Yeah, it's just a material.
It's a tube top.
But like, well, like here in the U.S., like, you know, the teenager with the navel stuff aside, if it's not summer, then, you know, but my point is that showing your legs is completely normal here, no matter how old you are here, and that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't just baseline go around showing your navel. So why is that body part okay and the other body part's not okay?
Yeah. Like, who decides which body
part
is
Who decided which body part?
God.
I don't think God was like, okay, if you're white, you can show your legs. If you're brown, no, I don't think God did. No, I don't think it was God. But anyway, it's interesting how acceptable that's supposed to be.
Yeah. I mean, that is very interesting that like you can show one part, but then you can't show the other part.
Yeah, and it depends on what your belief was or is, and what just became normal. And it's interesting because in the men's mind, who are seeing the body, like what's going through their head? Are they not noticing it because it's normal now? They see so many bellies that they don't care. They're just like walking around doing their work.
Which makes me think that there's still that idea that like the woman's body is like sort of just like this trophy or prize to look at with, because you're like either like teasing them with your midriff, or you're gonna tease them with your legs, or just your eyes for some people, you know, or some people their cleavage. Like what comes to my mind when you're saying these things is that like, so our bodies in general, just as females, are like still in society in general just something for like people to look at.
You see, I think it's biological, because
whereas like no one cares if a man is walking outside with a thong on.
No, that's not hot though, right? Like, I mean,
you know, they won't be judged as much as a woman would be if they were walking around.
Because women are expected, because it is like a thing of beauty. It's like a shiny object. It's like a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because women's bodies are a beautiful thing. Whereas, like, men's bodies are, I mean, people may not agree with me. I was actually talking to my colleagues about this. They're wondering why, like, Muslim men, for example, are allowed to, if they go to the beach, you can't tell the difference. You know, all the men are allowed to wear the same thing. Muslim, you know. But women, like, we have to figure out, because we can't wear bikinis, what are we going to wear? And why is it that it's that way for Muslim women and not Muslim men? And I explained to them it's because of the fact that our bodies are more a thing of beauty than their bodies. Like, if you see a man walking down, I don't think it's men who are deciding it, though. The body shape ideals don't seem sexual, but men would idealize a corset and bum roll or a flat chest or any other contrived body shape. What man would idealize a corset and bum roll or a flat chest or any other contrived body shape? Yeah, no, it's not. I don't think it's the men deciding it. No, it's not. It's not just like the men. And it's somehow in the society. It's almost like I think that these changes in style start with self-expression from a small group of people and spread out to others who don't know what they want. Yeah. No, that's true.
But yeah, I mean, it's like you're saying, like in the Indian culture, like this is how you dress, like it is part of self-expression.
It's like a deeply embedded thing.
But I think you were trying to talk about not that in particular, but like the whole point of us talking about this is that you were trying to figure out like where does this sense of wanting to be modest comes from versus not wanting to be modest, and it's not about who's regulating it, but like where is that coming from, right?
And what somebody's opinion of modesty is too. Like
but and also like why does modest have to connect with fashion or like how someone dresses? Right?
Yeah.
Because like why does the word modesty have to be intertwined with the fact that like you might just think this is fashion? Like if you're wearing like a bodysuit outside.
Are we going back to the teenage girl with all the skin showing?
That's what I'm saying. Like why is it not just fashion? Like but why is there always like this connection with the idea that like this female is just trying to show off skin and not be modest, right?
So like what you're saying is that why is there a right or a wrong?
Right. Because like if I was like a fashion designer, like I wouldn't see it as whether or not like I can design clothes to be modest or not modest on a woman's body or in a man's body. I would just have a vision of like what to me is art and what is fashion on like this canvas, which is this human body, right? Or this form. So like that's how I see like clothing.
Yeah, I mean this is an interesting topic because I'm taking the more like controversial look at it, and that to me the female body is a very attractive thing, and that is why it's more like it can be an attention-seeking thing when the body is shown because of the fact that it is considered a thing of beauty. So when it comes to a woman's body, it's not like just like a canvas. It's something to be careful with, you know, because women are the victims of all sorts of things with their body that are unpleasant.
Well, and I think that's what's wrong about that. I think that is what's wrong with that we tend to like sort of crucify certain women for looking a certain way, like, you know, and that's why the terms like hoochie and things like that are very derogatory like came about, because when we look at someone dressing a certain way and that's not exactly how like our brain computes as like actual clothing that we would wear. Personally, we look at that as something that like is attracting some sort of attention, and then like whatever attention, whether it be positive or negative, is their fault, right? Is that person's fault, right? And like no, like that girl did not ask for you to like hackle her down the street as she's walking, right? She's just trying to get to where she needs to get to, right? And she's wearing what it is that she wants to wear, right? I think that's the problem with society, is that like we immediately judge people for how they look all the time, and it might not necessarily be reflective of the person that they are, right? Because you have to look at other things, like, is this a young person that comes from a home where this is how they dress? Like this is how the mom dresses, this is how like the aunts dress, or like maybe they can only access this kind of dress of clothing because they, you know, are socioeconomically not able to access clothes, you know, from a certain type of place that looks better or looks more refined or modest, right? And so I think it's difficult for us to figure out like what is modesty and what isn't, because there's just so many other things that we have to take into consideration about like why a person is dressed the way that they are, you know, like because there could be like a millionaire sitting in front of you, but they're dressed like a bum, or like in your version, like what a bum is, right? Which to some people who like to dress up would be like a jeans and a shirt, right? Like that's bummy to somebody, right? Whereas like that person might be like, well, this is what I look and feel comfortable in. But they could be a millionaire, right? They could be a very like established person with lots of money, but they don't like to dress very refined and business-like all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've come across that being a family doctor. I meet so many different people from different paths of lives where they'll come in and they'll be all dressed up in a business suit, and then come to find out they're actually jobless and unemployed and on Medicaid, right? But they'll come in looking like they work at a Fortune 500 company.
Not judging a book by its cover.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where I'm just at with this whole like, how do people dress?
But so, okay, when it comes to my business, and when I see a teenager or a young girl coming in dressed a certain way, can I talk to them about it? Because myself and my nurses usually, especially the nurses, because I see them when they like get in a gown and stuff. Some of my nurses, they're like, you know, their moms have teenagers themselves, and they will say something to that girl like, why are you dressed like that? Don't dress like that. This or that. Is that okay? I mean,
No.
that's something a mother would do. So can the nurses do that?
No.
Why? Why can't a nurse say, I don't think you should be showing your midriff, or I think your shorts shouldn't, like, as like in a motherly way? Because we speak to these children like they're our children, because we're all part of the raising of these
which
children.
I get, which I completely understand, because like I see kids too in adolescence, but I think that that's not part of our job. Like unless like the parent asks you for that help, and they like in front of the patient says like, hey, like, you know, what's your opinion on this doc? Like, what's your opinion on? And sometimes like parents like to egg you on too, and like to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Like you're the middle person, and I don't like that. I don't like that game, because I'm not here to pick sides, right? That's not my job as a physician. My job is to like inform you and give you like knowledge, stuff that I learned and that we recommend as a society of, you know, primary care doctors or pediatricians. I'm not here to give you opinions or share mine. Right? I'm here to share decisions with you, to have shared decision making, and to inform you like what we recommend for your teenager at this age, right? But I don't necessarily tell kids like, hey, like, why do you have that piercing, or like, why are you dressed like that? Don't do that.
I think that's the interesting part of pediatrics, that some of the medical is shaved off and some of the social kind of the whole child comes into play, because there is, for most parents, there is kind of an expectation that we're all kind of in this together. Like as the child, you're being raised, and part of that raising, part of like the village, is there's the teachers, the coaches, the parents, the extended family, and the pediatrician. We're all a team raising this child. So I think that's where it comes in, because they will talk to me about every single thing, medical or non-medical. Like, I end up being like a go-to point person for everything to do with this child. So I think that part of it kind of pulls up this expectation of every piece of that kid. You know, and that, I think that is pediatrics. I don't think
it's not, I'm not saying it's like wrong. What I'm saying is that I think everybody has like their different like approach, right? And like I work with a pediatrician, I work with multiple pediatricians, because that's what family medicine, we work collaboratively with other specialists. I work with one weekly, and you know, like she tells me all the time, like, you know, like her experiences like with parents and stuff like that. And I think everybody has different approaches. Like she's also a mother of like 2 teenage girls, so like she'll, you know, tell me stories of like parents coming in and asking her like what she thinks like about what her kid is wearing, and then she'll be like, listen, like I have 2 teenage girls, like I get it, but like, you know, there's just certain things that like like I draw the line, right? Because like I wouldn't want like anyone else telling me how to raise my child, you know, like, because I'm a pediatrician myself, and having raised 2 daughters, like I get your pain. So like, can we talk about it? Sure. Can we like share opinions? Sure. But like, I will never tell your child like don't do that, because like that's sort of like crossing that like that expectation, that borderline for me as a doctor, where like I never tell like my adult patient like don't do that, because then like that connects to them like in a different way, where it's like, okay, so now you're telling me what to do, right? Or like everyone else is telling me what to do. Like I'm in this safe space for us to share with each other like all my deepest and darkest secrets, right? And I think like when you allow them to tell you all their emotions and all the stuff that's going in their life, and then at the end you're like, well, don't do that, right? It like, it sort of for me breaks that trust of like, oh well, I'm telling you like about like my friends and I smoking weed and all this stuff, right? And so like maybe rephrasing it in a way that is more safe for these adolescents to hear you and understand you, but not saying don't do that.
But no matter what, you never tell anybody don't do that.
Right.
Even if it was like a friend or a family member, you never tell someone, well,
I get
don't
triggered
do that.
when I hear a nurse telling my patients this. Like I literally had conversations about nurses, like me hearing nurses telling patients not to do things. Like that's when I will like be like, hey, that's not your job. Please don't talk to my patient like that. Right? Because like patients will get upset. Like your nurse just said this to me. You know, and that affects me a lot, because I'm like, that's not why you came today, to be yelled at.
Yeah, no. No, nobody should ever be yelled at by anybody in their doctor's office. But yeah, I think you know, it is, and also depends on the community. You know, we're in kind of like a small town community feel, and a lot of people know people from other places. But for me, no, I never really tell anybody not to do something. I think there is definitely a way to approach people. Like I said, regardless if they're a patient or your friend or your family member, you just wouldn't say something like that. That's just not how you talk to people. But it is, but I think influencing people in a positive way is this is how I approach it, because that's just how, like, a community pediatrician is part of families.
Yeah.
And they do look at you for help. I mean, parents, they shouldn't have to feel like they're alone. Oh, I'm just in this alone raising my kid. They look at the pediatrician, somebody they can talk to, somebody can turn to for helping them influence in one way or the other. Like, so many times a day I have parents, if I'm talking to the kid about just anything, even like sleep or diet, they're looking at like, are you listening to her? Can you hear her? Are you like,
yeah,
you know,
and they're like, oh, thank you.
Yeah,
doctor.
so I've been saying this, and they're
like, doctor, tell her to drink more water, tell her to eat more vegetables, and I always kind of laugh about it because I'm like,
they're not gonna listen to me. But yeah, but I think
honestly, you have to, like, you as a pediatrician, you have, like, remember when you went to your pediatrician, be honest about it. Like, did you ever really care to hear what your pediatrician told you? No. Because I remember my pediatrician very well, and I used to laugh in his face. Like,
yeah, but remember, you were like a rebel kid, you said, right?
Yeah, but I was also like, why do I have to listen to this extra adult where I already have to listen to two adults at home?
Yeah, but see, I was always, anything anybody says to me, even today, I take so much to heart that I just can't, and because, like, I have, like, a bit of a rigid way of thinking. Someone says something, and that's, like, all I can think about. Like, that's, to me, like, oh, that's what I should do or shouldn't do, and I just couldn't, I can't always, it just, sits with me. So I feel like I'm one of those kids, if the pediatrician said something, like, I switched to a family med doctor when I was in college. Just because my dad started seeing him, so I started seeing him too. Not because of the age thing. It was just more convenient. And I was tired all the time in college. Well, I was anemic too, but I didn't care about that then. And my parents called my doctor and said that she's tired all the time. And he said, well, she needs to get 8 hours of sleep a night. Is she getting that? And at that time, I didn't realize I was getting 6 or 7. So since that day, which was probably 22 years ago, that 8 hours thing has, like, absorbed into my mind, where if I don't get the 8 hours, I'm like, oh, well, I didn't get 8 hours, I must be tired.
But see, like, you're unique in that sense. There's many kids, I want to say 95% of kids these days, where they're just like, they're probably not even listening to you when you're talking.
No, they're not.
Like, they're just like, they're just not even.
They're on their phone a lot of the time.
That's what I'm saying. And they can care less, because the reason why they're there is because their parents forced them to be there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they had to be for some reason. But some kids really want to come.
Or like like their well child or school form or something, and they can't go to school unless they sit there and hear you.
See, a lot of kids really need to want to come, and they talk to me about things. So I don't know. I don't know. This I don't think I think this, like so many other topics, is a controversy.
No, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a controversy. I think it's just, this is what life is. Like, I think, like, these kids are different in so many ways in how we grow up. And I think that we sometimes focus so much on, like, how we can, like, control certain things about certain aspects of children's lives, where it's like you're saying, like, you really can't, you have to let them blossom and grow into their own skin and figure out, like, what's right and what's wrong on their own, because you're not necessarily going to always follow every single instruction that you give them, right?
No, and then when they grow up, they realize the adults may have been more right in certain things that they didn't think they were. But I just don't think I think each generation is raising the next generation, and we do have to be careful by what we're saying and doing and how we're influencing them.
But it's like we, for example, are an example of a generation that was raised very like structured, right? Like our generation, right? You are the way you are because that's how you were raised, right? Like, your rigid way of thinking is because that's how your brain forms, because that's how your parents raised you, right? And so, like, that's why it switched. Even Russell Peters was making fun of this when I watched his show like a month ago or 2 weeks ago. He was like, you know, I figured out the reason why we hate like Gen Z so much, or why we hate millennials so much, like our generation, like Gen X.
I'm technically a millennial.
Yeah. So he said, I figured that out. I figured out why. And he was joking about it. And he was like, I figured it out because he's like, we did this. He's like, we hate them so much, but we did this. We did this to ourselves, and that's why we hate them so much, because our parents told us growing up that we had to work so hard, work all the time, you know, live your life the way I tell you to, and we said, yes, I will do it the way you told me to. And so this is why we went to school, went to college, did exactly what our parents told us to do. He's like, and then we had our own kids, and then now we're just like letting our kids do whatever the hell they want, and then we're over here complaining about them.
Mm-hmm.
But we raised them the way they are because we didn't want them to suffer the way we did.
Yeah, but now there's an entitlement.
Well, like, everyone was just cracking up because everybody knew that was your truth. That's why I was like...
The truth is funny a lot of times.
It's funny because that's how it is. Like, that, you know, these kids have it easier than we do because we're not instilling that in them as much, because we were just like, we hated the way we grew up. We hated the fact that we couldn't go out past a certain time. We had a curfew, or like...
Yeah, we had to like find a phone to call our parents if we were going to be late.
We were made to go to certain schools,
them.
you know, or we were made to go to certain schools. Like, if I had a choice, I wouldn't go to Catholic school my whole life, but I was forced to. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I had no choice, because that's what my parents did. They were like, you going to Catholic school for 12 years of your life. Right?
Well, they probably were trying to save you from the junk of public school.
Well, the point is that, did it make me a better person? Probably not.
Maybe it did.
You know, like...
I mean, you're a good kid.
Did I, like, hate my life? Yes, because it was a very rigid and structured way to go to school. Right? And that's probably why, like, you know, I don't walk around dressing a certain way, because I had nuns coming after me with rulers if they saw that my skirt was a certain length. So that's the way that I was raised, like, very, like, strict. And so when you do that, it doesn't necessarily mean it's better, because after you come out of Catholic school, you go wild. You go wild when you go into university, because it's not structured. And that's what my medical school student and I were talking about, how she went to Catholic school her whole life, and then she ended up going to NYIT for medical school, but before that she went to Fordham or something. And she was like, yeah, it was just so weird, because I went from Catholic school and went to this big college, and I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. No one's telling me what to do. Where do I go? You know? And that's exactly how we felt.
That's interesting. My school experience, I went to public school, and the kids there, we were like, you know, like small town community.
Mm-hmm.
There was very few kids that had like a really nice fashion sense, so I had this fashion in me that was like bursting to come out, but I was too self-conscious to do it, and so I felt weird when I wore kind of like some more fashionable clothes that I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was self-conscious, I didn't have confidence to be like, oh, I wear what I want. I was like, oh, but the other kids aren't wearing dresses and boots, so I'm just gonna like not do that as much as I want to. And then when I went to college, I was like, yes, people here from all over New Jersey, not just from my small town, and there's so many, and there's even foreign kids, and people are wearing what they want, doing what they want, and I can just like wear whatever I want, and wear all my like flared stuff and my fur, and so yes, you do change with college based on your school. So.
Which was weird that your experience like that was like that in public school, because in public school you could do whatever you want. So we were always jealous of all the public school kids, because we were like, wow, they can get up every day and like have an outfit. Like my friend and I in high school, I was like, Imagine how it would feel like to have a problem. The problem is, what do I wear today?
See,
And like we would act this out. We literally act this out. We're like, I'd be like, so what are you wearing today? She's like, oh, like this blouse and this skirt. And then she's like, what are you wearing today? I'm like, the same blouse and the same skirt.
That's interesting because I was kind of jealous that the kids from like the private schools didn't have the pressure of being judged on what they're wearing or like trying to figure out what they had to wear. You could just wear the outfit and everybody was wearing the same thing, so there was no like pressure. Like the grass is greener on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Like public school kids are they're mean.
Well, it was more like the fact that we were just like, why can't we just wear our regular clothes? Like 5 days a week. We were only allowed to wear regular clothes on the weekend. I mean, imagine how constricting that was for like 12 years of your life. It was like being in prison, like wearing the prison thing every day.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And like that's what you said, like we couldn't like show off our sense of fashion. Like a lot of us were like, we want to show off like how we actually want to dress.
They went to a school where majority of kids didn't have a sense of fashion.
But like what, like your definition of fashion is different from someone else's definition of fashion, right? Someone could look at an outfit and be like, that's ugly, and then someone else could be like, yeah, that's something I never wear. You know what I'm saying? So it was like we wanted to self-express by like trying to like wear different clothes, but we couldn't because we had to literally wear the same thing every day.
I think teenagehood is such a tough time that I mean, no matter which way you put it, when you're a teenager, life just kind of stinks.
I mean, yeah, being a teenager sucks in general, but it's like you can't even wear the clothes that you want. It makes it worse, I feel like. Because we were just like, we would wear jeans under the skirt. We were looking like hot mess, crazy express people. We would like have our uniform on and we would have jeans under it. Or like some boots. Like we would just like try to accessorize this uniform as much as possible so we would look different from each other, you know. And that's how we express ourselves, by like putting other things on top of this uniform so that we can look different. Because
like wanting some sort of freedom.
Yeah, because everybody looked the same. Like you only knew you were different because every class had a different color or different looking skirt, so you're like, oh, and that's what even made it worse, because it was like, okay, like that's definitely a freshman because that's a freshman skirt, or like you knew it was for the seniors because the seniors had the senior uniform.
I just keep thinking about all the pressure of picking out an outfit and then people like, somehow, like I remember a couple of instances where like I was wearing these boots and this one girl kind of gave me like the stare down kind of thing, and as soon as I walked in that day, and it made me feel awkward that I was dressed like that to school. It's something I really wanted to do and self-express, but then I felt awkward the whole day, like, oh, I'm getting weird eyes and I'm not fitting in now, and it feels weird not to fit in. Now I don't care, but I'm 41, not 16.
Yeah.
But, and then there's this one time my sister got me, she knew back then I didn't like t-shirts. Now I love t-shirts, but back then I did not. I thought t-shirts were unflattering, and I only wore blouses, and so my sister went to Disney World on her class trip, so she got me a Mickey Mouse blouse. They made a blouse, and they had like this nice material, and Mickey's head with like black and green, and so I wore it to school. I thought that was the cutest thing ever, and with a pair of black pants. And the kids behind me, there was a substitute teacher in chemistry class, so we were all just doing nothing. And the kids behind me, I could hear them snickering at my blouse and making fun of it, and it made me feel horrible. I mean, again, if that happened now, I'd turn around and be like, okay, you guys have no fashion sense, so or just ignore it and be like, why don't you have anything better to do than
Mickey on the blouse is in.
But back then I felt like just humiliated. Like at 16, to have somebody kind of make fun of your blouse. Like it's always a sense of everyone needs to approve of what I'm doing, and now it's like the less you approve of me, of what I'm wearing, the better it is. But back then it was like, and so I just keep thinking about how outfits could make or break your day, and that's like a really hard feeling to have. Like, and that I mean, the kids that weren't dressing up or who were making the faces, were they like insecure or maybe wanting to do something different but didn't know how or didn't have the means to do it, or didn't have the insight to do it, didn't have the confidence. So it brings about all these weird teenage thoughts, and so I just feel like in some ways it is really hard to be able to wear whatever you want to school, because technically you're not wearing whatever you want, you're wearing what you find to be socially acceptable. So you may not, like, even though I didn't wear a uniform to school, I did feel constricted within what I wanted to be wearing versus what I could feel comfortable with all the other kids in the school. Because when you're a teenager, what everybody else thinks is very important to you.
But I also feel like, and like, you know, going back to the whole thing, like, of like, I don't think it's just like your outfit that makes or break your day, right? Like when I think about also like high school experience, like you're talking about, like there were girls who would come to school like, you know, full on glam, like makeup and hair did, and then there'd be like girls like me that just roll and go. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think that also is part of it. It's connected, like not just what you're wearing from here on down, but also like how you present yourself and how you look. Like, is your hair messy? Is it done? And do you have makeup on or not? And so, like, that's also like what I saw in high school, was that like even though we all look the same down here, what was different was like from this up and like down the shoes, right? So like that's what we used to see as girls, like, you know, which girl was wearing these shoes, like, oh, those are cute shoes, you know, like, oh, what are those shoes, you know, like that's because like we didn't really care about here because everybody was wearing the same, and then we'd be like, oh, look, her hair is so nice today, like her hair is always nice, right? Or like she's always so put together here, like her face is always just so perfect. Like, how does that work, you know? So like I feel like that's part of it also, and not just like your outfit, like how you look also like can make or break your day. Like if you look like crap, like up here, like people will notice it, you know, like they literally will be like, are you okay today? You know, like you look ghostly or like pale. Like they'll notice this first before they notice this. Right, and that's what I've realized throughout the years, is that like that's literally what people will look at first versus like what you're actually wearing, right? Unless like you're wearing some ridiculous costume, like you're looking like you're going to Comic-Con, then that will like be obvious. But, and I don't know if you agree with that, because I feel like that's also like a big thing, like how your appearance is, like how you come to work every day, or how you know, go to school every day. And I remember just thinking about those girls in high school that always looked so put together, and then looking at them now, they still look very put together, like here up.
I only have like one girl in the entire class of mine that always looked put together and still does.
And I remember asking those girls, like how do you have the time to look like this? Literally, I was like, what do you do? And they're like, oh yeah, I gotta get up at 5:30 and I blow my hair out and then I put my makeup on and no thank you.
And some people like kind of, even now, they get themselves up that early because they can't imagine not looking put together.
that's what I'm saying. But also, like, I think that's just part of that, and not like, cause you know, I thought about your shirt story. Like, is it just like the shirt that people see first, or is it like your face? Right, nowadays it's hard with the mask and stuff. People don't really know how each other looks. They
Yeah.
care less about this. But I think also like how you look is a big thing, and not just like
Yeah.
like what's here. Because half the time I don't think people really remember what you're wearing. Like what they see is this.
Yeah. There's
You know,
a lot of that.
yeah. And I think that as we grew older and like went into adulthood, I feel like that's also like a big part of like our profession, like looking a certain way, so that people look at us and perceive us, you know, in a certain way, because we are in a profession where people do look up to us. So like, you know, you can't be going into work looking like a bum all the time, right? And we have to tell residents that like you literally have to comb your hair, okay? If you're a doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so that looking is also a constant thing.
Yeah.
And not just like part of high school, right?
Yeah,
It becomes
it's
like
a
a very
constant
huge
thing.
part of your whole life.
Yeah, I mean, we have restrictions in our workplace of what you're supposed to wear and not supposed to wear. Like, we're allowed to wear jeans sometimes on Fridays for certain reasons, but they can't have rips in them. And
Yeah, or you're not allowed to wear open toe shoes. You're not allowed to have fake nails. Like, you're not allowed to do a lot of things in our work.
I have to take my nose hoop out, and I have to wear a stud.
Right. But you see, like, if you saw a doctor who has like a lot of tattoos or has like a lot of piercings, would you still have the same respect for that doctor versus like another doctor who doesn't have all of this?
You see,
Right?
well, I think that, you know, that kind of mindset's changing because, like, it's all about, because you and me may perceive them differently than maybe the generations above us, because, you know, they come in and they have, if somebody had a tattoo and piercings, they automatically would not feel comfortable with them, but you and me know that that doesn't matter. We'll listen to the words they're saying and their knowledge and the comfort. Right. But yeah, some people may not.
That's the sad truth.
Yeah.
No, I see you have a lot of comments here.
That was all Christy, for the most part. Yeah, that was Christy. But yeah, any final words?
Well, you know, the original question here was about modesty, like who gets to regulate, or who started the whole idea that dressing a certain way was more appropriate than the other, right? Like in women, like where was this standard built from? Like, how did this happen?
And the original idea behind this whole video was just like the different aspects of why we dress the way we dress. Is it an expectation, a cultural norm, our own comfort? Where does it come from?
Well, it sounds like it comes from all of those.
Yeah.
It sounds like it comes from like you individually, and like what you grew up being expected to dress up like.
Yes.
And what, you know, the other people around you seem to wear also.
Multifaceted.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, you wear what you want.
That is why for today's wedding I wore this gown and Mary wore this dress.
I don't even think it's a dress. It's like something I would wear to a meeting.
I have a dress exactly like that, and I wore it to a holiday party at work, and I also wear it to work.
Right.
Whereas I would not wear this to work, not because I don't want to, but because that would be strange.
I think it'd be strange. I think you could wear it to work and then like your little kids would think you're like a princess.
Oh yeah, I would be a princess.
Yeah, that's what the kids would think. So I don't think it'd be weird for you.
Some people have called me a princess at work before, so this would just be. I'd be like the Little Mermaid. She wears green, right?
Would she? I think she just has like a shell.
I mean, when she turns human.
What? She has a tail, and she has a shell bra.
No, she turns human. She gives up her tail for legs because Prince Eric is
like her dress
so
when she
dreamy.
comes out.
Yeah.
I don't remember the color.
I don't remember either.
But yeah, I don't think it'd be weird if you wore that dress to work, because I feel like the little kids would actually find it distracting.
Maybe I'll
with all
wear
the
it for
sparkly.
Halloween and like put my hair up in a tiara.
Yeah, but like, why would you have to wear it like on a dress-up day? Why can't this just be your regular wear? Like, why can't? But this is exactly the point we're trying to say. I'm like, why can't you go to work like this?
No.
You know what I mean?
I should ask. I should.
Is there a thing that says you're not allowed to wear a gown to work?
I should. I'm so wearing this until Monday. I'm gonna wear it tomorrow to breakfast.
Do it.
And then I'm going to keep it on and get up on Monday
And put
morning.
your white coat over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
Alright, everybody, I'm gonna be wearing this. I better change then, actually, because it'll be dirty for Monday, so I should reserve it for Monday.
I mean, I think the only reason why this might be not weird, but like uncomfortable for you at work is like if you had to go do like a delivery or something, or watch a C-section.
I have to wear scrubs for that anyway.
That's what I'm saying. Like that.
I could quickly change on.
You couldn't. Yeah. You couldn't really quickly change out of that because you need someone to unzip you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be like taking forever. And they'd like, where the hell is this doctor?
I'm unzipping my gown.
Sorry,
Hold on.
I'm taking my gown off. They're like, what gown? Are you undressed in a hospital gown?
Like, no, this is what I wore to the office today.
Which gown?
Get woke.
Yeah, like, you know.
Alright.
Alright, everybody.
Alright,
Eminem
thanks
sign out.
everybody. Eminem signing out. Good night.